So this is the 2024 everyday release with Stampers Anonymous. There are 5 cling-mounted stamp sets. Truth is, there was 7, because remember we did Love Notes and Mr. Rabbit at the beginning, because I'm not really good with a calendar. You know, Mr. Rabbit was going to be part of this, and then I realized, wait a minute, by the time we launched this, Easter would be over. So yeah, it was really early. So we've got these stamp sets and lots of stencils to talk about. All right, so I will preface this when it comes to Stampers Anonymous, because I say this every time, at least I try to. I try to remind everyone that I am not an artist. I do not draw. I just have creative ideas. And so what I do is I license art for my Stampers Anonymous stamp sets. Always done that, or I've scanned in some vintage ephemera for that. So what I love about being able to bring a lot of this art into the world of stamps is because there are artists that make their living licensing art to people like me that can't draw, and whatever you use that art for, be that paper or stamps or wallpaper or home decor. I mean, it's so many things. So these are really curated collections. They're not necessarily all done by the same artist. Sometimes they are, but often I'll take art from this artist and art from that artist and kind of mix it all together, especially like Curiosity Shop, and bring it to this industry, to the papercraft industry. And I really love working with cling-mounted rubber stamps, because it does provide me the flexibility of not only doing really detailed imagery, but also big, bold imagery for working with paints and inks and all sorts of things. Now, typically when the stamp sets are done, we call them CMS because it's a cling-mounted set. A lot of these will come with what appears to be a full sheet of rubber, because back in the day when I only used to do, I don't know, 4 or 5 images, I'm sure Ted remembers that, on a set, through the years, working with Stampers Anonymous, and obviously technology, the ability to have custom cuts for production when they create these. I try to pack a lot into these sets now, and so when I pack in a lot, they no longer do weeding. Weeding meaning when they would actually peel off the full production sheet of rubber, only leaving behind what you see. So for example, when you see this in a shop or online, you're going to see all of that red rubber behind it. I don't like to leave it there. One, to me, it's just a little bulky. So I go in and weed my stamps, meaning I pull this and I peel off that rubber and leave the cling. Sometimes, like on little sets like this, there's a benefit for some to leave it unweeded, because, you know, little stamps like this that don't have much cling area, they could get lost depending on how you treat your stamps. So some people prefer to leave it there so they can, you know, kind of pop out the stamp and put it back in its place. You do you, all right? But I just want to share that with you, so when you get yours and you see them, you're like, are these not cut out? They are. You just need to weed them if you choose, okay? So let's go through and talk about the designs in the sets. I'll bring them in one by one, and the inspiration, the image will also follow like this. I have the image sorted by design as well, so I think that's going to be good for people that can go back to watch this video on replay, look at the timestamp, and find inspiration. This first one, Abstract Florals, really funky art. I loved this art. This was actually a bigger art piece, but I went in and just kind of isolated the images that I liked. What I think is fun about these, they of course are very abstract florals, but I love the fact that this open area leads to a lot of creative possibilities, and you're going to see that from the makes, meaning you can stamp this over a colorful background, or you have the option to go in and color it yourself, be that with watercolors or pencils, alcohol ink. And then I just love this thick, bold, handwritten style font that I just did some simple sentiments. So, you know, we all are looking for cool, quick cards, but this adds a little bit of that abstract funk to it. So that is CMS 479 Abstract Florals. All right, next up, this one. This is really a cool stamp, and what I love about how the makers approach this. Some makers treated this set, this is Crochet Trims, a CMS 480. Some makers treated this set and actually did full cards and full designs just based off of this imagery. Others used it for, well, as a trim, because that's what it's designed. But essentially you get 2 different scales, 2 different sizes of the same 5 trims, and these trims are individual, so you can use them because it's cling rubber. You can actually give it a shape too. You're going to see a great card from Kubert where she utilized that as well. But these are all individual trims. Some people just used it like this as a background, so you'll see that too. A lot of great ideas. Often when I see art, you know, yes, I like to mix it up, as you saw in this set, but sometimes I'll just look at art and I just think that the art has so much potential that offering it in different sizes is important. So that's why sometimes I'll just do a set of the same art in 2 sizes, because, you know, if you're doing bigger projects where you need a larger scale trim, you'll have it. And then if you're doing smaller projects, you have it as well without the need to buy 2 different sets. Some people like that idea, some don't. That's all right. That's why this and this is just however I think it to be. And I hope that you really understand that often when I provide 2 scales, think about how it could be used, because that's really when we do it. Okay. Then we've got this one. I do love this. See, I always like little weird art. I think that when I approach designing stamps, I treat each set as its own idea. I never really treat a collection like a release is like, oh, everything needs to work together. No, I just think that whatever's on this just should have some creative influence on you as a maker and how you can use it. This is called Forgotten Garden. And just what this reminded me of is just, you know, flowers that maybe you kept that are dried. A lot of people, you know, you could totally do these upside down as dried florals. But what I really loved about this art was this right here. These little pieces of tape that you're going to see from the makers. So brilliant. That some people actually went in and recreated tape. Some people filled it in maybe with glossy accents or embossing. Some use washi. It's just a cool way to, I think, highlight florals on a card. And some makers used all the flowers, some just isolated one. You're going to get a lot of great ideas from this set. But I just think the sketchy illustration and just kind of how to me it appeared all dried up, that's where I thought Forgotten Garden, because, well, Mario and I, no matter how much we try to grow things around here, it's not that we forget them, it just kind of looks like that. Yeah, see, Irene said the same thing. Forgotten Garden sounds like mine. It is. It's like people would look and they're like, do you not water that? We do. Anyway, I love the style of this illustration. Then I would have to say my favorite set of this entire release is Curiosity Shop. And of course, it should be no surprise to you guys that this is really my jam, with hats and mustaches and pointy fingers and all that. I love this set. And thank you, Team Stampers Anonymous, for letting me pack as much as I possibly could. Really kind of the first time that I took a stamp set off the grid. And so I'll explain why I did it and why I did it this way. Okay. So for Curiosity Shop, it has this great typewriter. That was really this style. And believe it or not, although this looks cool, this is many different artists that contributed to this set from a license perspective. But it has a very similar aesthetic. I love the cohesiveness. But this typewriter is just a great illustration of a typewriter. I love the design. I love the keys of it. It's also designed that you could go in and right here on this line, you could make a cut with a craft knife to make a slit in there. And that is what this stamp is for. This is just a sheet of paper that is sized that it can slide into that cut if you made it after you stamped it. So you can put this piece of paper in the typewriter. You'll see it from the Makes. And then we have all of these typed out sentiments, everything from stay curious, thoughts and theories, hello, love you, lucky day, happy birthday, thinking of you, and just a note that can be stamped in there if you wanted it to appear like it's coming out of the typewriter. You don't have to use it that way. Two very cool light bulbs. You're going to see how those are used. Of course, a 4-leaf clover, lucky day, some great hats, fun mustache. And I've done hats. I've done many hats, but most of the hats that I've done previously in previous stamp sets are engravings. So those were actually vintage illustrations, where this is more of an engraved style, but it's illustrated. And I just thought they were really fun. Then we have this one, which maybe caused some confusion. I saw a little chatter after this was launched about like, what does this even mean? This has a great number strip. And the inspiration behind this number strip was I did a number 5 in one of the stamp sets, Eccentric, and people really loved that 5. That came off of a piece of ephemera. So I really searched for some vintage typography that resonated with that look, and I think I found it. I love this style. But I did this 1 through 8 strip because it really could be a number background. And you'll see how it could be used. It could be used many, many different ways. But then behind this whole banner, there's this one. There's a 0, and you're like, what's going on? Because as a maker, even though that was my intent to do a background, I didn't want it to not be functional if you as a maker wanted to use numbers differently. Many people buy stamp sets for specific reasons, because they want to do birthday cards or want to have, maybe for a scrapbook page, you want to do dates or something like that. So I also wanted that if you choose you could make this stamp set more functional, meaning you could go in and actually cut these apart. You know, you just go in with very sharp scissors. There is enough margin that you could go in with scissors and you could cut these apart. And although it's close, it's very easy to do, be that with scissors or a knife if you choose. And the reason there's not a 9, 1, I had no real estate. 2, I didn't want to give up real estate for a 9 because this and this could be the same. So you could use this. When I flipped the font over, it looked just the same. I mean, yeah, the drop shadow, you could argue that it would be slightly different, but to me, I think it's a good compromise. The benefit, I think, of having numbers is it has a great artistic composition, but I wanted to explain that that's why that little 0 was hidden, and you may not see it online. Sometimes you might not even be there. And then, of course, the pointy finger is going either way. I love a good pointy finger, and you're going to see from the makers, it's very, very cool how these get used and how they are designed. Love it. That's Curiosity Shop. Then the final stamp set for this release is Paint by Number. Just no surprise. I just talked about how much I love numbers, but these are big. They're big, massive numbers. But what I loved about them is that they were painted. And the fact that somebody went in and actually painted these and then scanned them in, those little skippity bits and brush strokes I really loved, because when you are stamping with paint, or when you are stamping with ink, or when you are using embossing, it's very cool that we have this worn out effect that you don't have to try to replicate. I just love it. I think it's really, really good. So that's what I love about this style of it. And, you know, you could argue, what about this? There was room on this set, and plus you can see that this was a bit chunkier than this. I love really that they were just hand painted. So Paint by Number for the win. You're going to see this used in so many clever ways. I'm so happy that the makers celebrated this stamp set in many, many cool ways. I thought, you know, it was just going to be a bunch of birthday cards, but we did get a bunch of birthday cards, but I've never seen so many creative ideas for a birthday card. But we also got some other cool art using the set. So there is that. Then we will get into stencils. So in the world of stencils for Stampers Anonymous, for the most part, I do the stencils in what we refer to as like the regulation size, the large size, and then we do them in a mini. So it's like for every 3 large, there's a mini. That wasn't always the case when we started out. So most of the stencils were very random in nature. I will say that in recent years, I pretty much try to think of a theme, because I felt like if you're going to maybe buy a set, you might want everything to be a little cohesive. So for these stencils, and I'll show you each art design, this one is kind of, I'll say, an Art Deco style. So shout out to Paula for that inspiration. This one is more of a like mixed media cutout, definitely inspired by the dies that I did with Sizzix that were mixed media. And then this one has much more of a modern retro look, if you will, with the color wheel and the rounded labels and the dots. So again, these stencils are all individually sold, the large ones, and then the minis are only sold like in that 3-pack. So you couldn't just get that design small or the large and a small in a combo. It's like large or mini, because there again, we like options as makers. Sometimes we want to work on a bigger scale piece, and sometimes we want smaller. So shout out to again, Stampers Anonymous for allowing that flexibility of having designs done both in large and small scale. So the designs, like I love this spot one. This was inspired by the dot die that I did with Sizzix. This was inspired by just vintage labels. We love labels, but those rounded corner labels, and I just like the mosaicness of this. This was certainly inspired by color wheel. You see a lot of people doing color wheels, and I like the idea that you can create a color wheel, because you can do half, and then you can simply turn the stencil this way, or you can flip the stencil and you can do a full color wheel on a journal page or a card. But because all of my stencils, I like to limit myself to this tag. Hey, you have to get creative, and that's just what we did. So that is that set. These cutouts, well, they're just funky. I love the idea that sometimes we want just some chunky, odd shapes. So believe it or not, the cutout 1 and cutout 2, it just has different designs, different patterns. But these are great for texture paste. These are great for using embossing, because like I said, they're chunky openings that allow a lot of that medium to go through it. But they're also whimsical. You're going to see some inspiration. You know, that's the whole reason for a live. I always encourage those of you watching live or the replay to just be open-minded, because sometimes I get it. You see it online and you're like, no, denied. because you don't think it resonates with you. But then when you see the inspiration behind it that the makers do, you're like, oh wow, I never thought that something like that would be my style. Hopefully it is. And then of course, just a great alphabet. This is very, I don't know, it's kind of bedrock, a little Flintstone, but I like the carved look of this, where again, you could do paste, or you could go in with a pencil, like watercolor pencils, outline that and color it in. So you can even do some real thick lettering for that. And then these, as I mentioned, these were inspired by Paula, because when I was talking about stencils, I'm like, you know, hey, Paula, were there ever any stencils that you really wanted? She's like, I've had this art file for years, but I just didn't think that it was your jam and your style. And she's right, it's not necessarily my style, but they're beautiful. They're very cool. And to me, it had a cool Art Deco vibe. So I'm like, hey, let's do it. So I love these designs because like this one is kind of a feathery look. It could be a peacock feather, but these are beautiful in not only like mica stains, but also metallics. If you do metallic embossing powder or just do any type of metallic paints or pearls, they're really beautiful backgrounds. This one's kind of florally. This one's kind of a leaf print. So yeah, I think they're great. And the makes, definitely, you'll see that. So again, a shout out to Paula for just saying, oh, what about this? I'm like, hey, why not? Because to me, they're three very distinctly different themes or ideas when it comes to working with stencils. So that is the release for 2024 every day. I do love it. And the inspiration, I'm telling you, buckle up, sit back, relax. Just remember, you can always go back and watch this on replay and check it out. So it's good. All right, here we go. So believe it or not, I'm going to start with stencils, because I just finished with stencils, because I want to remind you guys the power of a stencil. Stencil that has shape, that has a lot of great openings, is really important when it comes to making. Now, these samples, of course, some of them incorporate stamps as well, and you'll see on the stamp cards that they incorporate stencils, but I just wanted to set the stage of the importance of stencils. So this card set, Louisa created these, and I love the mixed media approach of these cards. So I'll just kind of first throw them all down, and then I'll pick it up just to kind of show you what I was talking about. So this one, of course, uses cutouts. So remember when I talked about kind of the funky shape, you can see the alphabet. Look how great that is with paste, using metallic embossing powder. So this is black texture paste. Remember with Ranger, I do a black texture paste as well as regular. But even when you like leave some of it open, especially if you plan on adding some layers. So this, of course, is the label stencil back there. You can recognize the big paint by number. You can see the sentiment from Abstract Florals. So another thing to keep in mind that you'll see is many of the sets, although you wouldn't think they go together, if you are purchasing them or if you have them, don't be afraid to step outside the set. Okay, again, this one. So we'll take a look at this stencil here. So that, of course, is the cutout letters. Then we've got the dots. Then there's the number from paint by number, and there's, I think, like there's a 3 there. It looks like a 4 back there. Just for the art of it, there's a 7. You can just start spotting the numbers when you really look into it. And then you have all these little words from Curiosity Shop. Again, for the art of it. And then the sentiment would come from Abstract Florals. So although you wouldn't think that these really work together, they do. They have a great cohesive vibe when you just have paper and you just let yourself play and create. That's what I was saying at the very beginning of this live, that when it comes to stamps and stencils, the imagery allows you, the maker, to just do what you want to do. And I'm going to fill up the screen as we go through the makes, because I think that's good. It's impactful. Sharon made this card. I love just the use of little crackle paste. Look at that shine on there, just over an inked background. It really adds that little shine, but also that, look at that crackly goodness. Translucent crackle paste for the win. Going over an ink background just adds just that texture and color. Plus, if you're an inker, it is nice when you have translucent paste, because you don't need to have 30 colors of paste. If you already have the inks, you just put that over the top of it. And I love how she paired it with that sentiment, but beautiful and very simple. And that's the other thing that is important to understand about stencils. Everybody designs things different. I get it. Some people design 12 by 12 stencils, or 8 by 8, or 6 by 6, or big full stencils. For me, I always wanted, and the reason I called them layering stencils, and I know in today's world it's a bit weird, because now we know layering stencils is like 6 or 7 stencils that you actually physically layer. This was just that a stencil is just a layer. It's just an element of your project. It doesn't have to be the whole background. It could just be something where you put it down, you use a little bit of it, and it becomes part of your overall work. So I love that. Susie created this. I love, again, seeing the use of different stencils in there. Again, you can see it, a little texture paste and some distress embossing glaze, but pairing those different shapes together so you can mix and match the designs to create your background. You can still put them with numbers. You can put them with your embellishments. These were old school ideology. You can pair them with stamps, and this is, of course, is stamped, and I love how it's just collaged on there. And then using the stencils with ink or paint. So even if you're using a stencil, you don't have to use it with the same medium for everything. Cool, right? So many ideas. So many ideas. Natifa did this. I love these. I think she calls them taggies. I just love the idea of a whole different set of shapes and sizes of tags and cutouts, and using all your bits, using whether it's flashcards or stickers or ephemera or ink and paint, and just have a play day with stencils, a little bit of stamping. So see, just that numbers are just, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. You can use them as all sorts of background elements. There's that, see what I was saying about the crochet trims. They don't always have to be isolated. They can still be a beautiful textured background. Take little snippets of stuff that you cut out and enjoy the creative process. And I think this is a very clever make, because sometimes we just have an idea like this, where you just take your portraits and you're like, great, I'm gonna just add a little stencil right over that area. That's it. But you don't necessarily know what to do with it. Do you put it on a card? Do you put it on whatever? Well, bundle those ideas together, because that in itself is a project, even if it's cleanup. I love going through this, because you can just explore. It's like if you're not quite into art journaling, or maybe you're into art journaling, this is a whole nother outlet, because you can take just little snippets of ideas with tags. I love the fingers over the transparency. You can see the wheel in the background. So once you start to look at it, monoprints, you can take a total deep dive when you, and I know I'm going through this quick, but hey, the makers are also sharing it, and I really want to encourage you to check out the makers. Many of them share process. Sometimes they do it on YouTube, sometimes on their blog. So definitely check out the maker page on timholtz.com to follow the makers and just kind of see what they do and their process. This is also a make by Natifa. Again, just the explosion of color, but also the use of everything. When you think outside the box, going, oh, I'm going to just use this little bit of stamps, or I love this big, see, paint by number. That's why I really needed that set, because it is so bold and amazing that you can put it on even the busiest background, full of layers and fun and texture and color, but it's going to always stand out and make a statement. But if you, again, look, there's the crochet trims, there's some stenciling going on. Look at that. I love how she just makes the envelopes. And of course, there's always, I've messaged her, I'm like, I can't wait to open the envelopes, because I don't peek. All right, take a look at this panel. It's cool. So this could just be, this is just a piece of chipboard and made this great art panel. Love the texture. See that stencil? That doesn't even look Art Deco. Now it is just a great design. Paula was right. It's just a fabulous design. And then using, again, little elements. It could be an inky tag. It could be some ephemera. It could be stamps. Just love that. And that in itself is art. What a great combo, right? Ideas, ideas, ideas. Juliana created this. I love how she used that label stencil in the background. Of course, you can always pair things with die cuts, other elements. You don't always have to do matchy-matchy, but I love how the Forgotten Garden is stamped in there, and it's kind of stamped through that stencil, so even the image breaks apart, because stencil, you can ink through it, paste through it, stamp through it, and then paired with, looks like Vault Wildflower. So I love just using those silhouettes. There's so much inspiration to go through. It's unbelievable. Susie created this one also, paper dolls. How fun is that? And then using that abstract, because again, those florals, the whole abstract floral is, I know they're way out of scale, but it depends on how you use them. So this just, it makes for a very cool statement. Some you'll see a card where it's just the focal point. I love that. But I love this layer. Can you see under here the layer of fabric? But then she also used the crochet trims just kind of tucked in there. See, those are embossed in white, that's in black, and it kind of creates this whole little tattered background. Those trims are very cool, just because they're detailed, and they hold really well to embossing. So see, you can even still get that crochet look, even with embossing glaze. It's such a cool set. I love it. And then of course we've got the dots, also glazed. Just cool art, right? Super fun. Susie also created this with stencils. I love Susie's approach because, again, you can just make art from the things that you have. And I put both of these together because I thought, like, how cool that, she used the flowers, but totally different styles, because these are all Susie's. I'm like, I just love that you can take this same image or from the same set and go, you know what? I'm going to give it a vintage grungy look. It's going to be a color look, or in this, just very colorful with that wheel. Isn't that beautiful? See, that wheel stencil is magic because you can put so many mediums through it. Wait till you see, there's so much inspiration using it. But I love how you can just color it and isolate it, and then with distress, you can spray it with water, and the color wicks and splatters and some stitching and stickers. It's just great art. And that's what I hope this collection inspires you to do, is just create with it. Have some fun playtime with it. Whatever your making style is, I think that's really important. Tammy B created this. Look at this beautiful card. So often a sentiment we don't think is a background. Well, why not? You can completely take that background and just repeat it. And you don't have to get all up in your head with, like, I need a laser alignment, all that. Just go for it. Just stamp. But, sometimes people really think, well, I can't ever do that because how do I line it up? You just do it. You just get going, and before you know it, you'll have a background full of whatever you like. It could be a sentiment, it could be a floral, but I love how she used that wheel stencil just to create that focal point, and then just highlighted that one sentiment just in black over the top. Isn't that great? Great use for Stampin' Stencils. Barbara created this. Look at that great little rainbow. I loved that this was the one card that, instead of using that wheel vertical, it was like, oh, she saw a rainbow. And I thought that was really such a charming idea to do for a card. So it's got, there you go. I was trying to get the light to hit it. Do you see all that rock candy beautifulness? Yes, it sparkles. It's a sparkly rainbow for that wheel. I love that. And then, of course, you see the background from that deco. Those are the little florals. And I love just seeing the die cut hearts and loving that love. But that's a very cool idea, using that wheel stencil, because it could be a color wheel, but it can also be a sparkly, beautiful rainbow. So fun. I told you a lot of inspiration for color. Sharon created this. Love that. Distressed watercolor pencils, outlined and then watercolored in. But see what I was talking about, that when you have a stencil that has a big enough opening, you can take your pencil and go in and actually draw around it, right? We talked about that in some previous lives too, just making that color, making that mark around it, because that's going to be the highlight, and then just pull some of that color in, but then you get the best of both worlds. But again, I love this whole rainbow splattering. I need to find out what Sharon's tricks are to really isolate a splatter to line up with what you do. I don't think, maybe she does some masking. Maybe she's like a paper towel masker like I am, but I love that effect as well, where the splatters just kind of radiate out of that wheel. And then from Curiosity Shop, just stay curious. Simple sentiments. That's what I also love about stamps. And fonts are fun. I just like to find some funky ones. Sometimes they're very handwritten, and sometimes I just think simple typography is also really good. Isn't that beautiful? Just so good. All right, filling it up. And then to round out the stencils, and again, we've got tons of inspiration, but this was a great way to highlight the power of a stencil. Sharon made these as well. So these cards, this whole series, are those cutouts. So remember when I talked about those cutout stencils right at the beginning, and I said, don't look at those and go, ooh, I'm not into, the abstract wonky, but look at it just from a pattern perspective, that there's clean and simple, colorful cards simply by taking that stencil, do distress texture paste, because the regular distress texture paste, and it could be black or it could be white, it is designed to absorb the color. White's going to give you more vibrant color, and black is going to give you more sheen, especially if you use mica stain. But then when you spray that, you not only get color, you can use spray stain, oxide, mica, but it soaks right in and just gives you these beautiful backgrounds. And then you simply cut them out as panels, and then she paired those with the sentiments from Abstract Florals. But isn't that a great series? So this is where you can just sit down one day, do a whole bunch of paste and inky play, and then just decide what size you want to cut those panels in, mount those on card fronts, and you're done, right? Great idea for stencils. When you don't think like, because often we think stencil needs to be a layer, well, because, you know, we think layering stencils, but they can also just be the focal point. Brilliant inspiration, am I right? Brilliant, right. Brilliant, brilliant. So much. And again, this will all be on timholtz.com after the live, so you'll see the little snippets, and then the makers will be posting as well. Probably, well, they're going to be posting a lot. I can't say these will all be posted over the weekend. There's more makes than that can happen, but, and that's just stencils. We're just getting started. I see a question, which paste absorbs color? Distress texture paste, just the regular matte opaque one, the white one. I mean, the black and white both absorb, but the white one is of course going to show translucent color, and the black is going to show like things like oxide or the shiny part of the mica stain. But the regular texture paste in black and white absorb color. The translucent will resist, which is cool. Thanks, Mario. All right. So that was just stencils. We've got like literally buckets and buckets of inspiration. Now we're going to get into, I think I'll actually bring in the stamp set first, that'll help me also when I do timestamps. We're going to talk about inspiration with this set. Okay, abstract florals. Here we go. Let's get into that. So this card, Kubert did, look at how great that floral is. It's what I was saying about it being a focal point. You could have a background. It could be alcohol ink. It could be distress ink. It could be oxide. It could be any kind of background. But really my inspiration for that set when I saw the art was the openness and the fact that, man, I can stamp this over a background and give it a really cool abstract look. Okay, so I do love the fact that the lines are bold enough, but there's enough open space that you can just utilize that. I love that little addition of stenciling and some stamps on there. Just a really cool card. Then we've got this series done by Kath. Again, same thing, just doing some backgrounds. I love how she just took and just had a play. So when you want to sit down and you want to play with different mediums, be that alcohol inks or anything you want, just make backgrounds one day, just for the sake of making backgrounds. No intent, just compartmental making. And then one day you can sit down with those backgrounds and you can stamp on them, and you can stamp directly on them, or this looks like maybe translucent Yupo where you can also stamp and emboss. You can also do that on vellum and layer it over a background too. But I love, again, how those floral elements just create such a cool, striking, abstract effect over a colorful background. Those fun. Kath, I love these. I always love the series because, you know, you see cards and cards are great, but when you see, you know, often an idea done in repetition, you're like, oh, wow, I could take that, I can do that. Yes, yes, you can. Joy created this. See what I mean? Beautiful to just color in. You can take a card, you can mask off a section, you could do a beautiful background, and then just color, because there's plenty of open space that if you like to color, be that with markers or pencils, these are definitely meant to color as well, but these show that you don't always have to color in. But I think that's great. And to me, the font is just, it's fun. It's a fun, playful font just to work with. Rochelle created this, same idea, just going in, doing some watercolor pencils. I love the stencil in the background. Again, just doing that technique of pencil stencil, where you're pencil, either one. You take a pencil and a stencil and you have a good time. That's what you do. Well, you know, I don't know what I called it when I said it, but I love the ideas. You're going to see I'm filling up the screen with tons of inspiration, tons. Sharon created this card. I say this a lot when it comes to Sharon, because Sharon is just like, she's a wild card. A lot of makers have a style. Like, I would have to say that I gravitate towards grunge when I make. You know, I think sometimes many makers are identifiable. But Sharon, really, I always have to like do a double take. So I'm like, oh, this is probably Barbara. And I'm like, no, Sharon, yep, same one that could like just color a clean rainbow. And I love that because it is just kind of proof that as a maker, you don't have to stick to one style. You can push your comfort level out and learn new things. And I think that is just such a fabulous way to approach creativity. But here you can see that floral. I love that she went in and fussy cut that one top element and just dimensionalized it over the stem. Same thing, how she added that just because, and then a little stitching, a little texture. Just fun, right? When you see it. Cassie created this, so you can see like mixed media. I love that. See those stencils, that label, there's a little crackle paste in the background. I really like how she created kind of that bouquet of flowers, just if you feel like doing flowers one day. I can't encourage this enough that when it comes to making, if you often find yourself with a creative block when you sit down to create, and I'm saying this, we all get a creative block now and then, but if you find yourself more than not sitting down and never having an idea, really break it down into compartmental thinking. Just do backgrounds. Just stamp and color and cut out flowers. Just do sentiments. Do something creative compartmentally. Don't think that it has to even work with anything. It doesn't matter. And then when you go to build something, to make a card, you can grab a background you like, you can grab some elements that you like, you can grab a sentiment that you like, and you can make cards in under 10 minutes without any pressure, because all those creative ideas are just there for the takings. Like going to a buffet, you know, it's interesting. I don't cook, but it's like, oh, what's for dinner? What's for dinner? And you have to think about that. But if you go to a buffet, you don't care because you're going to find something you like. That's what it's all about. So just keep that in mind. Zoe with a Y created these. I love the colors. It's almost like, I don't know, like blacklight glow posters. It's so fun. And that's the great approach to any design, especially like with these florals. They could be colorful, they could be more warm and earth tone, or they can just get your funk on. And I love the idea of these backgrounds, choosing the stencils, and then of course that mica shine. Aren't they great? They're beautiful colors to just sit down and play and layer. And these are all stamped and cut out. That's some serious fussy cutting. There you go. But I know Simon Says Stamp has coordinating dies for this release as well. But I know that the makers also didn't use them because they didn't have them. So whenever I see the fussy cutting, like that's just, it's cool, especially layered on top. I mean, I think vellum and translucent stuff has really been something that as makers, we start looking at surfaces and how we can build, and it's cool. These should need no introduction, but I will tell you anyway who created these. Alberto created these. You could just see his color style. You could, like I just said, some people you can just recognize when you see that to check it out. And I love how his color styling, it's almost like this graffiti airbrush look. I just think they're wonderful, and I like how he just kind of extended the lines. He always puts a fresh spin on any of the designs that I do, and he has his own unique approach. Where do you see one of the cards for Curiosity Shop? Like my mind, but you'll see that coming up later. But this, I love his approach to the florals, and you know, the splatters and the little drips. Doesn't that just give you just like graffiti vibes? I love that. I love the coloring, and then his little pen work of the sparkles. Yeah, it's like something you would see like an airbrush shirt as well. I don't know why I get those vibes, but it's just beautiful. The coloring, I just look and I'm like, man, wow. Skill and talent. But color doesn't always have to be in the lines. I love this card by Jen using those stamps because, again, the bold lines that I talked about are also amazing for stamping. Even if you're going to do watercolor stamping, be that with pencils or inks or oxides, they are bold enough to hold their own. So you can still ink them, spray them, stamp them, and create some really great backgrounds. And then the backgrounds could then become the focal point. It doesn't have to be isolated and dimensionalized. I think it's really great. But I love how Jen just incorporated the numbers, still did the pointy finger, and then that little strip of vellum going across with Stay Curious. And then she just used just different sentiments in a color as part of the background. Isn't that great? So cool to see the inspiration because it's like one stamp set just totally adapted many different ways. Many different ways and many different ideas. So Barbara created this. It's a little tag book. I did figure out that I needed to slide this because I had no idea how to even get into this, but I like that it just slid off. But look at this great accordion tag book. I love the colors. The colors are so like, I don't know. They're like summer. They're like sorbet. Isn't that great? I love the use of all the stencils in this background, whether they're dots, whether they're cutout letters, and then just each tag has that isolated abstract floral and then still using the sentiments. So even if you're not a card maker, I hope you get inspiration on how you can see it. And I really like how she went and took the stencil and actually created words because it is an alphabet set. So you could go in one by one and just start figuring out what you want to do. Draw it in pencil. You know, I always say, like, if you're going to do something like this, and it may seem like it takes more time, but my advice, if you're going to trace something and you plan on coloring in or using like in this case it was embossing glaze because she could go in with an embossing pen, is just start by sketching it with a pencil first just to make sure your spacing's right. Then you could go back, line up the stencil to the pencil, and then fill that in with your embossing pen and glaze. Isn't that fun? I love it. I just love the playfulness of all these images. If you would have told me that all these stencils will be used together by makers, I would have said, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're probably going to stick to the theme, you know, modern with modern, cut out with cut out, deco with deco. And I would be wrong, clearly, because they're great together. So much fun. So that also, I hope you see that inspiration. If you were like me at the beginning going, yeah, I'm not really into that cutout look or into, yeah, well, things will change, right? So Jeanette made these fabulous pieces of art. So remember, when it comes to stamps, well, any creative tool, stamps, dies, anything, you need to think about how those tools would adapt to your creative style, okay? If you're not a card maker, if you're not, you know, an inker, you don't want to use all of these elements, but you like to do your own art, in the case that Jeanette does just wonderful art, wonderful mixed media pieces. So she just did her own mixed media art. This is on just, looks like canvas, and then just cut up snippets of her art, but then used a stamp image as like a focal point for the art. Does that make sense? Meaning the entire art piece doesn't have to be created from stamps or from dies or anything. It can just be a beautiful accent. And I think this card series is great because some makers, some artists just like to work on these big canvas pieces. I know that there's many art journalists. I learned that from Dina, where Dina would have these beautiful journal pages and then she would just rip it out. Well, Diane would do the same thing. They would just rip it out of the journal and then cut it up. And it's like, well, it doesn't have to stay in that book. That's just the place I created it. It's still art that I'm going to rip out. I'm going to cut it up and repurpose it into something else. And I think that this card series kind of represents that your making style, there's nothing wrong by cutting it down to a piece that you want to highlight and then still pair it with a die or a stamp. But I do love how she used the florals. See that little glossy accents on there? Not just a great detail. It could be glossy accents. You can use embossing powder. Just a great card series, Jeanette. I love it. So much fun. Again, no introduction, but Natifa, like this, the fact that this whole envelope is alcohol inked, I fell in love with right away. But just kind of how these flowers all come out, and then it just has all of this white highlighting in there. Isn't that cool? Just such a great way to display all of those florals. But I can't wait to see what's inside. It's like a kid at Christmas. Oh, fabulous. I love that she really, I mean, envelopes, but I also love what's inside because it's a continuation of that great idea. Again, alcohol ink background, those cutout flowers, but really that little white pen work. See, to me, that changes the whole aesthetic of this flower as well. It gives it so much more texture, almost like it's been lino cut out of that, because you've got these little sketchy bits with a white pen. I think that's so cool. And then just the stencil in the background, just tie that up with a little tag. Just a great way to do cards. So if you're into cards or panels, I mean, this is just, again, a piece of chipboard that is the sentiment, because really the gift and the art is the envelope. Isn't that great? Well, I don't know. See, I don't even know what to display. I gotta fit it in. Look at that. So this is part one. I would just say this is the colorful part of Abstract Florals. Amazing inspiration, is it not? It's absolutely beautiful. Amazing. All right. That's my favorite, when you have it all filled up in the Listen, I just decided this time after doing Sizzix, I'm going to build as I go. It's much easier for me to do that in my head than try to shuffle it around. But this is only the first part of this set, because in true maker style, not everybody does bright and colorful and funky and abstract. That's why I'm so appreciative of all of the makers, because as a maker, especially when you're in a group of makers, it's often hard to kind of stay in your lane. Not that you have to stay there, but it's just because you see other people's work and you're like, oh gosh, I should do that. But when they just deliver as who they are, that to me is the biggest challenge. I always say this when we meet prior to a launch, when the makers get the product. I'm like, I know that the design may not resonate with you, and if it doesn't, don't use it. But if it does, use it the way you would do it, not the way you think I would use it. So for example, these cards, Stacy did these, and Stacy's very like, she loves shabby chic, that color. She doesn't always, she still loves vintage, but it's always a vintage vibe. And so just the softer palette of these cards, and then that really free-form stitching, it still gave a very cool abstract vibe, but in a palette that is very harmonious and comfortable to what Stacy does. But I love how again, that stencil pattern is what's showing through here, but then there's also just a little bit of spotlight coloring, but a very soft pastel approach to these abstract florals, right? Just a great idea for a card. This is kind of my stitching. This would be me, round and round and just off the rails. I love it. But beautiful cards. Again, a great idea of how to use these. Juliana created these. So again, or this, I would say, I say these because I love when there's many flowers in there, because they are funky. And when I chose the set, I wanted to create flowers that I felt like if you wanted to make this like abstract garden, you could. So I really love when these are layered, because, you know, sometimes you have to layer, sometimes you have to do a little masking. But again, the background is very, ooh, look at that. I just noticed them. Like the background is very neutral. I was focusing on the spots, but take a closer look. You see the crocheted trims in there? It's just a cool little bit of scribbly interest. That's great. Looks like possibly a little lost shadow, because that's that really soft, almost invisible gray. And it is a magical ink because it's there, but it's kind of not there. Isn't that cool? But I love that because it almost looks like it's kind of a quilted background. But beautiful card, again, sticking in with, say, neutral colors, but then adding that imagery in black. It's huge, it's a pop. It's a pop right there. Emma created this. Look at how just flashy dashy this is. Isn't that great? It's so like great Gatsby Art Deco, just like wallpaper in just a fancy hotel like the Hollywood Tower Hotel. I love it. And I love how it's just done in black and so shiny. It just doesn't have such a great Art Deco look, and then just highlighting that floral and the bend in that floral. Like I said, the fact that this is and it's important to remember this even when you're using this as a maker, especially if you happen to do coordinating dies. When you have stamps that have stems, you know, it's important. I mean, I design it to have that kind of crazy cool stem, but you as the maker, remember when you're stamping it, however you position it on the block is how it's going to stamp. So you can always create that look how you do it. But if you're going to die cut this, you need to make sure that that is going to still be straight. So often I always say, you know, before you put this onto a block, take the stamp, set it on the table rubber side down so it can be how it's supposed to be, then pick it up from a block. Because if you think, oh, I'm just going to put this on the block, even if you're just slightly off like there, then it's not going to line up. And that holds true with any time you have coordinating dies for cling mounted stamps or clear that have small little, I don't know, appendages, be that flower stems or wings or anything, that it's just better to place the stamp down and pick it up. This way it will most of the time lay. But I love how Emma went in and just gave that just a little bend. Isn't that cool? Did some watercolor. Beautiful. Always great detail. See that? Like just seeing it with the stencils. Wow. Then Vicky created this. I love seeing this on Ideology craft stock. So that's going to be craft paper that's printed in color. So I love how Vicky went in, took black, sanded it just to kind of create a space, and then was able to stamp and then do colors. I'm guessing this is pencil. I'm thinking this is distressed watercolor pencil. I don't think it's oxide, because oxide I think would be a bit whiter. But see, and I love how she just colored outside the lines. But there again, that kind of velvet painting looking thing. But what a great idea to take Ideology craft stock, because again, now it's smooth. It used to be in an 8x8 pad that had that linen texture. And I think it was
Vicky said it's pencil.
See, that was a good guess. Yeah, I can kind of deduct. I'm like, okay, it's probably not paint. I love it because it has this great vibe to it. But what a clever idea. I don't use craft stock enough for stamping because it's colored cardstock. I never thought of just sanding a landing spot. Why not? That's a great idea. See, that's what I love about lives too. Just get those ideas and be like, I need to remember that. Note to self: craft stock, sanding, stamping. Yes. All right. Kathy created this. Look at this. I mean, this is what I was saying. Like, it's a totally different approach to the last batch of makes using the same stamp set. Just a lot of black and white incorporated in here. And so I love how she took the approach of embossing in white. You know, most of the time we've seen these images, these bold images stamped in black, but in white. Wow, it's so cool. It has such a modern look to it, even though the stencils are all different. I love the deco, the cutout, and of course the dots. but it's really beautiful on black embossed in white. Doesn't it just give it a completely different, just a totally different aesthetic? I love that. And so I'll talk about tags because a lot of times makers are like, you know, we make cards specifically for live, but they can also make tags. Tags are just a great shape that you can use for many things. Even if you make it, you can punch a hole and tie it onto something, okay? But if you're not into tags, you can still work on a tag, and if you don't like the little angles, plan it to where you can just chop off the top and use it as a card front. But I do find that just working on something that's not specific to a certain card size does give you a little bit more, I think, creative freedom where you can modify it and isolate it before you actually put it on a card. That's what I think. That's what I'm trying to say. All right. These also fabulous. Anita created these again on black, and take a look at how she created these two. Look at those. They're like slimline cards, but these are big ones. These are big, and I love it because I love how she just created this whole look with these florals. I love how she used that wheel stamp or the wheel stencil on the top. This looks like, to me, this looks like oxide because it's very soft and chalky. It's very, very beautiful on the stencils, but take a look at those florals. The embossing, the white outline, aren't those great? And then you can see, so there's the dots and then you can see the blocks. Almost kind of like a little garden wall. I don't know. I love these. Anita, they're so cool. Just the color, and again, the color in contrast, because when you see that, like, that has a little highlight of white. These are done in white. That's done in black. That, like, oh, the ideas. So cool. And then if grunge is your jam, Louisa has you covered. That you can still just do your grunginess and you can still add that flower because flowers always go good with grunge. Remember that. You can do brown. Like, I love that this is all die cut. So this is just using, I think this is one of the mixed media sets of just cutting out some cardstock. But you can see that the cardstock itself is inked, and there's stamps and there's stencils with texture paste. Again, because when you're inking your background, that's going to absorb the ink. And then I love how Louisa just took those stamps, stamped it on white, embossed in black, done. Cut it out and put it right over those backgrounds. So we've seen that a lot, where just creating your backgrounds first, having it, cutting them up, utilizing it, and how these florals really can play a role in your art. You saw with Jeanette, they were done on like a mixed media colorful, and then here you just do great grungy backgrounds and then add the floral with no color needed. So I really hope that the inspiration, I mean, I couldn't ask for better inspiration, as if this was all planned, and it isn't. We just have them do them, but I think the mix of makers, it always lands in just that sweet spot, knowing that we're going to have such a great variety. But often you see an image set and you think, what would I ever do with it? You know, I don't like anything funky. I don't like anything too bright, or I like vintage. Well, you've seen with these designs that when it comes to a stamp, you can just use your flavor to create whatever you want. It's cool. So that's the inspiration for that set. One set down. Here we go. All right. Beautiful. Thanks, Mario. Okay. Next up, we're going to talk about this set, crochet trims. Now, this doesn't have as many cards because these trims were used throughout many makes, like I showed you on that card from Juliana, which I didn't even see at first. But I did pull a few cards together where I felt that the maker really kind of highlighted this set, this design within their make. But you'll see it in other makes as well. It just, again, has a lot of great detail. I'll just kind of hold it up because it is illustrated. So it's not like just a piece of trim that went on the scanner. You know, someone went in and actually drew all those little loopity-doos, all those little intertwines, those little twirly whirls, all that. It's just cool just to create that look. I think it's good. Well, you know what I mean. Like that sort of stuff. Okay. These first cards, Stacy, again, you can see that shabby look, but I love how she incorporated those trims to kind of finish off a background. You might have your favorite background stamp. You might have different images that you like. And I love how she took this Tiny Prince stamp, stamped it in the middle, but then used the trims where she just finished off that edge. So, you know, yes, you could have a straight line block, but this really gives a nice finish. But I also love just the sewing detail to go right across those trims. So it just gives you that handmade look as if you were sewing on some vintage trims. I like that she put a trim on the top and the bottom, on the top, and then here just on the bottom. Isn't that great? It's a great idea for those sets. And again, an inky background, a watercolory background, your favorite distress kind of background, and then your stamping. Your stamping can still be this great watercolory look, even with those trims. Those trims don't have to be perfect. They can just be you. I love it. Love the sewing details and the little buttons. Those great cards. Beautiful. Love the look and love the color. Jen created this. So there again, white embossing, we've seen that. It makes a big difference. Just adding that over a background, it just creates a nice foundational piece. And I also love how she just did the little light bulb. See, there we go. There's a little sparkly glitter because it does kind of look like a heart in there. The filament looks like a heart, and I love how she did thinking of you. But see, it doesn't always have to be something vintage. It always doesn't have to be something with florals or lace. It can really add an accent or an element just to any card. It's great. Zoe with a Y did this. Now Zoe, I know this looks like lips. I tried to fix this. This got crushed coming from Italy because Zoe is in Italy. This was a faceted heart, but it got quashed on its way from Italy. So just the photo shows it, but I kind of think it looks like lips now. So it's like miss you with a little kiss. But here's what I love about this card. I love how she used the trims to not only go around the card, but also look how she used that where it's stamped. I think it looks like it's folded. And I know Zoe's in the chat, but to me it looks like, because at first I thought, oh wow, she stamped it and then she cut each one and glued it. But it's almost like she stamped a strip, but then just kind of like folded it over itself to create that ring. Do you see that? So it just adds a beautiful, almost like a doily, just a great little dimension around there. And then how she took that cutout stencil to do Miss You.
Yes,
so cute. Yes, I see it. Yes, I see. Thanks, Mario.
Loves the
yeah,
heart and the lips.
I know. When I saw it, I'm like, I don't mind that at all. Yeah, see, Zoe, you're going to be a trendsetter. People are going to be making the hearts now and just go, pink. Yeah, but because the back was sealed, I even tried with a little pokey tool. But it's a fabulous, fabulous card. I love really just the ideas of how using these trims just in different ways. So this card, Tammy B created this. I know this was her favorite set because Tammy B told me she loved crochet trims, but look at this background where she just stamped it with distress embossing glaze, little antique linen back there. Isn't that just, it's such a great background, even though they're individuals. So that's what I was saying, that yes, you can use it as a trim, but you can also just take them, line them up however you want because they are separate. So if you have a block, you can even mix the scales as you do it. You can mix the directions and then stamp it as a background and emboss it or do your ink. But isn't that, it's a fabulous set. It's one of those sets that I think many people probably underestimated. They're like, no. But then when you see it, you're like, maybe. It's pretty cool. Wait till you see. There's even more inspiration. But I love how this was highlighted. And then of course that abstract floral on the top. It's a great background for that, I think. Beautiful background. Rochelle created this one, again, embossed in white, using it as more of a resist. So by embossing that in white, you can go in and do some ink blending, do some beautiful blends just to create a wonderful background. I love just seeing that scribbly butterfly die over the top because when you have an open die cut, you can put that on a card and still appreciate the background. And then just because that would be the sentiment from Abstract Florals. But so this is again, a background, but as the maker, because these are separate, you can put them close together or you can put them further apart. You do you. That's it. Good, right? All right. So these cards Keisha created, I love this because, well, this is a lot of fussy cutting, but I love just the colors that Keisha did just by stamping those. Again, these are stamped and embossed. The embossing is nice, and I'm so glad so many makers did embossing because often you would think that a detailed stamp you shouldn't emboss because it's going to like fill in the blanks. But if the stamp is made well, and if the stamp, especially like with red rubber, if it had deeply etched, you're going to be able to still appreciate all of those little, I don't even know what I'll call them. I'll just say detail, because I did see like I make up words. Details, even if you emboss it. And I love over this color blended background, but then I also love that she just went in and cut them out and then used them as a background. And then of course the whole background of the card is just done in texture paste. And texture paste doesn't always have to be inked. It still provides a great soft texture, fluffiness to the back, almost like using an embossing folder, but you can use your stencils for that. Isn't that great? A great card set, especially because most likely you could stamp the entire thing and you'll get 2 cards out of that, right? Because the strip is long enough that by stamping it, see, stamp it once over your color, cut it in half, and then she got 2 cards out of just doing it one time. So a whole nother approach to working with this. I think I can actually spread these out a little bit more because I have just one more card before we get into other sets. This card is one I talked about at the beginning that Kubert did, and I love how she used crochet trim just like party streamers, banners, bunting, however you want to refer to it. But I thought it was really a clever way to take those trims, and again, because just like we talked about the floral, you can take that trim and how you put it on a block. When you put it on the block, you can just give it a little bend, stick it onto your block, and then when you stamp it, you just get that fun little curve. But isn't that great for birthday? Who would have thought? As I said, like really a clever work just to kind of go in and add those little details, especially for a birthday card. Because I definitely got it with flowers and butterflies and pretty things, but I never once saw it as party streamers until now. And now I think it's really, really probably one of my favorite ideas for this particular set is thinking of it as party streamers. I think it's really clever. Never thought of it like that, but now I won't look at it without thinking of like, not only is it just this great tatted, almost lacy look, but a very fun festive play. So those are the makes that really kind of specifically spotlight on the crochet trim stamp set. But like I said, you're going to see it in a lot of the other makes, but it will be kind of tucked in here and there. Very cool. Great ideas, isn't it? Just so amazing. Okay. Next, we're going to get into Forgotten Garden.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mario. And Forgotten Garden, just again, the approach to people's style and how they interpreted a stamp is just, it's so amazing. Rochelle created this first card. Now, the thing to know about this stamp set, and again, I'll talk about it, is the tape. And so I'll highlight that a lot of just how makers interpreted like this area, because it really is designed to be kind of like that old, could be Scotch tape or cello tape or masking tape, but they came up with some really clever ways to accent this, highlight this, and we even had a maker that's like, nope, no tape, just using it for the flowers, which I thought was brilliant. So here on this card that Rochelle did, we can see that crochet trim. That's what I was saying. You'll see it as a detail, but she stamped, colored, and then it's just like little bits of washi tape that you can stamp on and cut it out, because that's going to help you follow and match. Or if you just wanted to cover what was already there in the image with something opaque, you can do that as well. But I thought I love just seeing those little bits of art in there, the sewing details and the buttons, just a fun and clever way to utilize that. And of course, utilize the flowers. And many makers used a lot of the flowers, and some just used, like I said, one. Kubert created this. Love this card with, again, that crackle paste in the background. And then all of these stamped and fussy cut. That's a lot of cutting. But then I also love just the little numbers. These are remnant rubs, Ideology remnant rubs. But now it's just kind of more of a little specimen kind of card. Isn't that clever? Great for just gardening, but I love the little detail. That's what I was saying. The ideas that they did on that tape is like, that's just cool. That's just fun. Jen created this card. So see, again, a colorful approach. Instead of stamping and coloring in, you just stamp with color and then just do a little blending. But I love the rainbow fun of these flowers and just how she went in and just stamped on some, looks like sticky back canvas, just stamped with some text and then cut it out. So it didn't even have to be anything specific, but it's very artful. And then she's got just that just because cut out and little blingity bling on there. Isn't that fun? So cool. So many great ways just to utilize this. Kathy created this card, doing some beautiful watercolor. So just, again, stamping and then going in with your water brush and just blending out that color that you stamped. But then the tape could be more like masking tape. It could be just brown. It could be just very cool just to add that detail. But here you can see these layers, because it is a card. It could also be an art panel, but I love the crinkled cardstock and how it's just layered. But then also the use of the crochet trims just kind of tucked in on both sides. So that's what I was saying. On a lot of the cards, like, you may not even notice that little detail. That's the other nice thing about that stamp set. They could be subtle or they could be just the whole deal. But yeah, the watercolor, like, isn't that great how, like, so far, 4 cards, totally different look for the same stamp set. same flowers, just how you approach it as a maker. Then this one, I was struggling with, you know, where this was going to fit, but I saw these flowers and I'm just guessing that that's going to be inside, but I'm guessing. I could be wrong, but I was like, she usually gives a little hint of what's inside. But this is from Natifa. Again, you can see how she used those trims just to create the background, but then just did a lot of that scribbly writing in the background. Then we have the florals, but I thought that was a great use for pattern and writing in journals. Let's see, see? Thanks, Natifa. That would have been a little embarrassing. Where it's like, nope, it's another crochet. That's all right. See, look at that. What a great, see, again, another piece of chipboard, but what a great little art piece, again, doing specimens. See? Makers, I think they channel each other. But look at Tifa's approach. I love not only the coloring, where it's just kind of a watercolor spot, but I love all the little dots out there. Again, doing little pen detail work. There's crochet trims down the side. You're getting on that whole theme thing, Tifa. It's just like, I'm starting to channel the whole, like there's a little nuance to the outside of what's on the inside. But I do love the whole look of that panel, because this could be a gift to someone. They could use a clipboard clip or anything just to display it, but it's a fun approach for this flower set. It's very cool. This is the card I was talking about that Joy did, and I thought it was very clever. I'm like, she's not even going to try to figure out what to do with that tape. She's like, I don't need the tape. So I really love how she just decided to use the upper parts of all those florals and create a wonderful wildflower card. How cool is that? And then just a crochet trim just as like that border, just so you know they're not floating in space. She did Miss You, and then just did a beautiful blended background with water. But that's a very cool use for these florals, because yeah, there's plenty of design. See, now you can't unsee it, right? Before you only saw it with that, but like now when you just cover it with your hand, you're like, I get it now. Now I can totally do that wildflower. I thought that's a really great approach to cards. That's the thing about makers. Like I always encourage them, when you have an idea, no matter how different you think it is, run with it, because it's going to be so unique. It's going to be such a great approach to inspire how people see cards and images. I think that's important. Barbara created this. Look at this beautiful bouquet that, even though they're different florals, it doesn't mean you have to be all colorful and different. You can still stick with the theme. So I love how she used that little distressed plaid. That's from Mr. Rabbit. It's such a great stamp set. So remember, if you got Mr. Rabbit and you're thinking, oh, I need to put it away because I'm only going to use the rabbit at Easter, those other stamps, especially the dots and the plaid, those are must stamps. They're great, great backgrounds. And you can see how great scale and sketchy works really well with Forgotten Garden. But I love how Barbara went in and just used the stamps, did a little stamping, a little color. There you go, crochet trims again as an accent, and then just some of that ribbon there. Isn't that beautiful? Beautiful ideas for working with these. This card, Vicky's style is always going to be something rusty and grungy, and I was very surprised when I saw this, because I'm like, this looks like, yep, that's Vicky. Florals, maybe not, but florals that have a great little rusty aesthetic to it, you bet. She's like, stand back and watch. But I love the effect of this. I love the idea of text in the background, stamped, you know, almost like this, just this beautiful kind of blue, like a stormy sky color. I love the little bits of stenciling, obviously the sewing details, but then when it comes to these florals, I mean, they are stamped and cut out and then like stuck onto this, but just that rust that's just like dripping out from underneath. Isn't that great? That's just good. That's just good, Vicky. Like, see? Grungy flowers. That's what you can do. And there is some grunge. I mean, a lot of makers just approach their grungy side. Louisa created this card. I love how she used the crochet trims kind of at that awkward angle, because there's still a linear line, even though, you know, I'm not so much on the wonk, but I like the idea of having that line and then just how that opens up. But just look, just again, use your favorite colors, your browns, your greens, your textures, and then still incorporate the stamp the way you would. So I do hope that if you're watching this and as we go through it, you really are seeing each set open-minded and be like, let's see if I can incorporate it into my style. Maybe yes, maybe no, but nevertheless, very cool. All right, this card Zoe Hillman created. I love the idea again of how makers use not only elements but also older sets, because you can still go in, you know, that's the benefit of our full set syndrome or just the fact that we want to collect. New toys are good, but don't forget the toy box. Don't forget all the things that you have acquired and see how they can be used with something new. And I love Zoe's approach to taking that flower, but also kind of the specimen where she just used those little postage stamps. I love the field label, and I love that big label stamp here. If you have a die, you can use a die, but there's also a label stamp. And I think that's a really great approach to just taking little sections, building up a collage, dimensionalizing, and then just using the stencil as a monoprint. Remember, inking the stencil and printing with it is equally as effective of putting something through a stencil. So stencil should be used through and on. I think that's great. But isolating one flower, you don't always have to do, all the flowers. You can certainly isolate them in many different ways. I got to make some space here. Still have more makes coming. Barbara created this card, again, talking about isolating, just stamped on a little tag. I love the little bit of fabric around and then some flowers in the background. But very cool way, just to highlight one of the flowers. And even if you're doing a little tag series, which you're going to see a lot of, you're going to see a lot of tag series as well. We've got so much stuff, huh?
Yeah.
Tammy B created this beautiful little detail fussy cutting around there. People that fussy cut, I think this is really going to be your jam. You're going to have a lot of place to navigate around. But I love the label stencil in the background. It does give it almost like a cobblestone kind of look, but a bit more clean. But also just the use of the crochet trim just on the edge of that card. So taking an A2 and just kind of cutting it off, but it really looks like a full card. But I love how that card just opens midway in. Isn't that beautiful? Love the colors, but also love the detail. Love the highlight of like just a single flower. Let's scoot that up. All right. Then we have some makes from Kath. And Kath did like a whole series. Kath just does that. We always say I think when Kath gets into it, she's just goes. And anything within reach, she's going to add her spin to it. I love it. So I thought this was really clever. And so thanks, Kath, for sending both pieces. Because again, if you start out by making an art panel, because you're just playing, maybe you're playing with stencils and stamps and rubs or any of those elements, and then you die cut it because you think, I'm going to make a frame or a shakety shake card, that piece is equally as artistic as this. So you can still utilize this piece for however you want to see it. It could be, a little gift tag, it could be a little extra, but look at this beautiful shakety shake. Look at those colors in there and how they pair perfectly with that little flower. Again, fussy cut, there's the label. So very similar. I mean, I put these close because I'm like, wow, what are the odds that, makers paired the same stencil with the stamp, but in completely different palette with a completely different outcome of how they saw this working. So I love the little shaker card and the little tag. That was pretty, just beautiful. And then Kath also made these, and she did warn me because anytime there's a little bag or something that Kath sends, I almost think there's a treat. And she's like, do not open this. There's not candy in it. It's a little lavender sachet. And so she's got lavender in there, and she's right. I would have opened it on camera and there would not have been candy. But look at how she stamped on fabric. So these images are stamped on fabric. There's a little pillow, or it could be a pin cushion. And I love how she stamped on the fabric and then colored it in. There's remnant rubs because yes, rub-ons work on fabric as well. But I also love just how she incorporated it on this little linen bag. Again, this is filled with lavender, so it's a little sachet. It's got a beautiful smell. And then just how that is stamped on there, again, colored and rubs. Isn't that great? So stamps and stencils on fabric. As long as the fabric doesn't have too much weave to it, too much texture, you're going to get just great imagery. And stamping with a waterproof ink like archival, something permanent, I would say if you're going to stamp on a new substrate, test out your inks, right? Because the ink that you might like on paper might be a different ink than you like on fabric, or that you like on Yupo, or that you like on transparencies. And that is why there's so many different permanent inks out there and water-based inks, because they all work a little different depending on what your outcome is that you expect or anticipate. So yeah, beautiful makes, right, for Forgotten Garden. We have still a whole tag series coming up at Forgotten Garden, but these are what I consider like the cards and or little gifty ideas, but beautiful set makers. Just so many different ideas, starting with colors and sets, and then just kind of going on to the grungy and individual side. That's one of my favorite parts when I set up the night before. So last night when I was sorting them all out, that's just what I get in my brain. I'm like, how am I going to kind of tell the story, and how do I see these as the story? So I often like how these images allow me to take you on a little little creative adventure as far as how we look at art and images and ideas. So next for Forgotten Garden, we have just a lot of tag sets, and I'll talk about them quick and just bring them in. So Nico created this little set. What I like about this idea is that sometimes when you have small images, they make great ATCs, they make great gift tags, they make great quick mini cards, and you don't always have to make the card right away. You can just stamp and color and just move on, and then you have it. Because even if you're maybe into traditional A2 cards, you can still take this and then just put it on an A2 card base, kind of like how Sharon did those stencil cards at the beginning. So you don't always have to start with a big project. You can just make something small and go with it. Case in point, Tammy B created this little set. So these little cards, these cards could just be little top folding cards. They could be place settings. Maybe you're having a little get together. Maybe it's going to be a luncheon. Maybe it's going to be a party. Maybe you even want to put a gift card in there. But I think the idea is really great. You don't have to go over the top. I love how she has that filed stamp. That might be from Eccentric, I think. It could be from another stamp set, so don't quote me on that. Somebody else will know more than I would. But I really love how she just paired those other ones just to give it a bit more kind of specimen vibe to it. Little decal cutter, look at that. I just noticed that's the Ideology decal trimmer. Great just to cut smaller pieces of paper versus tearing them by hand, because it really lends well to that little jaggedy edge of the tape. I'll bring those back in. That's a great detail with that tape, Tammy B. Nice. Very nice. Look at that. Look at that. I do see a question, what happens to these cards afterwards? Majority of these go to Stampers Anonymous. They go to Ted, and he displays them in his booths when he travels all over the US. He's got these wonderful display boards in his booth, and the makers are gracious enough to send these makes so they can be displayed there. So if you attend any of those shows, you can see these makes up close and in person. It's pretty great. Zoe with a Y created these. I say Zoe with a Y because we have Zoe Hillman, Denmark, Zoe with a Y in Italy. So I love her approach of not only creating these tags, which could also be cards because they're again that top folded card, but just how the texture by having that little transparent layer. And these aren't actually stamped on the transparency, because at first I'm like, wow, that was really good. It's just a transparency stitched over the stamp. So it really does highlight that flower on each of these tags, because you've got all this great collage. You can see some Ideology collage paper, that photographic paper, stencils, stamps. But I thought that was a really clever way to use transparencies, because transparencies, like, they could be a nightmare. It's a love-hate relationship. You want to stamp on them, but then, like, especially if you emboss, you got static charge, smudge. But what a great use for just putting some plastic. It could be, you know, repurposed or recycled plastic as well. Just again, a great series of how these can all go together. I love that. Then we've got some tags. So Stacy created this series of tags. Again, look at all just that shabby, tattered goodness. I do love how she used that die cut for the tag ring, and I like how they're just on different sides, opposite sides. It doesn't have to be right in the center. Pair it with some string. But what a great tag series. Not everything has to be glued. Look at just how tattered and ripped and worn and yummy they are. A little bit of stamping, really loose watercolor outside the lines, like so organic, right? Just so pretty. And there's a little, what is that? That looks like embossing glaze. Looks like there's a little bit of distress embossing glaze, because if you have a distress embossing pen, you can just color in with a little bit of that clear ink. So after you've stamped and colored, you can go in with that clear ink, put your glaze, and it stays right in where you want it. But I love the texture. That's why I was like, what is that? Because it's not like glossy accents that would go smooth and bubbly. It just has that really great texture to it. And I think this die cut, this came from, I don't remember what the die set is. I think they're called like vintage tags, but there's a tag set of dies that I did with Sizzix that have different reinforcements. And I'm pretty sure that's what Stacy used on the top of that. Aren't these great? Just the color style, and again, just the tattered grunginess. What's also nice about ideas like this, you know, when it comes to tags, because you think like, well, you know, I'm not giving all this stuff away. I'm not making gifts for people, but this could be a gift. You can gift someone a set of tags or a stationery set, or, you know, again, maybe you're wrapping up something or bringing something to a neighbor. These little handmade things, having at the ready, are really, they're so important to do as a maker. We don't always need to have a reason to make. The reason to make should be the love of making. That's the reason. That's why we make, because we love it. And everything else is just a bonus. Susie created these. Look at how beautiful these are. Again, stamped on fabric. I love that two different makers just took that challenge to stamp on fabric. But Susie's approach to these little collage tags, again, love how they're just tied together, because it could just be a set. But look at the detail work in there. So it's stamped on fabric, and then these little pieces are also stamped and then sewn. So following kind of that tape aesthetic, like I said, you could just go right over that taped area. So the fabric doesn't have to be exact, but man, sewing around that, I don't even understand. Like, my sewing machine would swallow up that piece of fabric like it's nothing, probably because of the operator and not the machine. But isn't that just a beautiful detail? And this, Susie, we need to talk. I need to know what this little, how you achieve that little nest fest going on, because that's just fabulous. You know, like, that's what happens when my bobbin goes wild, but I can never get it on my project. So yeah, I just love that. Isn't that a great, because I often do the little straight and little ziggity zaggity back, but this, yeah, bring it on. Beautiful, right? Great ideas. But the quality of red rubber stamps just allows, I think, the flexibility of an image being used on more than just paper. But I love the color. I love how they're stamped in different colors as well, where, I mean, you can see that the stamping is the color, you know, and it's just kind of a little smudge on the outside. Isn't that beautiful? So you see the blues and the greens, the purples and the greens. Just so good. So good. So again, a whole nother collection of ideas for Forgotten Garden. Go from cards to tags. There's so much inspiration from a stamp set and how you want to approach imagery. I told you at the beginning, it's amazing. It's incredible. The makers they do so many wonderful, magical things with how they approach the art. And I'm so grateful for that, just because they do a lot of work. They don't have to send the amount of makes that they send. And I'm so grateful when they do. It's really cool. All right, so I'm going to kind of jump out of order because I want to finish with Curiosity Shop because, well, it's my favorite. I want to do that. But so I'm going to jump to Paint by Number. And Paint by Number, it really is just a fun and funky set. So where do you see the clever uses for this type of art? It's wild. It blows my mind, all right? So this first little accordion book, Zoe with a Y created this, and I thought it was really clever. And so when I was setting it up last night, I'm like, oh, I just love that. I love the 1, 2, 3, okay? It didn't really dawn on me until I was moving it around and I was taking big scatter photos that she even just did like a play on photos. So we've got, I love how she paired the beautiful Ideology paper dolls in with the clipping stickers, but just how it's like 1, and then there's 2 people, and then there's 3 people. I just thought that was very clever. Just a fun way to incorporate those numbers, but also with photos. And then, of course, on the back, 4, 5, and 6. Isn't that clever? Come on.
That is really
Come
cool.
on, Zoe. That's just
cool.
clever. Because really, I was like, oh, I love the numbers in there. But yeah, it's really just a brilliant idea to just incorporate, especially if you love paper dolls and you love doing collage and you love doing layers. That's a great use for numbers, just to actually do a countdown on that. Really fun and just, yeah, super clever. Clever way to do it. Because,
You don't
yes.
want to know how many times I picked that up.
And you never noticed it.
Unpack it, move it.
Yeah.
Right here.
You never noticed it.
That's
just
really
artist.
awesome.
Yeah, it's very clever. Really is. Kathy created this. So sometimes numbers are just playful, and you're going to see a lot of this. I mean, we're going to get into birthday cards as well, but sometimes you just use numbers for the art of it. Maybe it's your favorite number, or maybe it is a significant number. And I love how when you see these numbers used, I love how Kathy just used a whole variety of images from things from Curiosity Shop, obviously Paint by Number, stencils, abstract floral. It can just become part of the art itself. You can certainly incorporate numbers that maybe have, like it happens to be a favorite number, like Stacy did. Like 13's my favorite number. I love 13 and 7, but just because that's what you like. So you can put that on and just do art. Stay curious, the pointy finger, again, tags and stamped images. So don't overthink the numbers is my point. Yes, you can definitely take them literal, but you can also just make them as part of your art. That should be the most important thing as we go through this, that it is just part of your art. because you can use numbers as the art itself. So Jeanette created this art piece, highlighted numbers. So the numbers themselves could be a focal point to whatever you create. That's totally fine. I've got a, this is really big for the frame, but utilizing it, whether you're using it with color or over texture, over design, the numbers can have whatever significance they want to your work. They could be part of the background, they could be literal for a countdown, or maybe even a fun advent, or they could be just part of a bigger art piece. That to me is what's important, you know, as you see these makes. Juliana created this card, so there again, the numbers are there, but they're really, those don't happen to be the focal point like they were in Jeanette's piece. This has, you know, die cuts over the top, but then the numbers and the spots in the background. But it makes for a cool background because when you look close enough, you'll start seeing the numbers. And they're definitely more earth tone pieces, I think, on this, but also a bit of blues. I love how Barbara created this. So this is kind of getting into the birthday card vibe, but not as specific, just stamping a bunch of numbers in the background. You know, I love the little shakety shake with the dome, but again, fun ideas for numbers. They are just numbers, but numbers could also, you know, just have playfulness to it. Vicky created this card. You know, I love how she just did the mustache on top of the pointy finger. Just create a background that you want to play with, and whether these are favorite numbers, whether they're a birthday, whether they have significance, that to me is in the mind of the maker. That's what it's all about. Like Zoe's card, I get this one 24/7 because that's just kind of like the ideas. 24/7, 365, repairs receive constant attention. That would be repairs to my brain. But I love how she also incorporated glitch. That's a really cool stamp set, one of the older stamp sets, but I really like how that industrialness of glitch really pairs with this numbers. But this is what I was saying about this particular number set, paint by number, is this. The little skippity bits, those little open areas, because the stamp itself has the skippity bits, has those openness. So even though you stamp it with intention and purpose, it will give you that skipped, worn look by design. But I love just seeing kind of this vintage grunge look of working with the numbers. And then of course we still have a lot more paint by number with birthday cards. So cool way just to use numbers for the art of it. That was kind of this first layout is how you would use it for the art of it. All right, beautiful makes. So cool, so different. That to me is like wild and wild. And there's going to be some group shots of this as well. So we're going to get into kind of the birthday thing, or the use of numbers for kind of like a play on words, if you will. So Kath created these cards, and I love how she used the numbers kind of, again, like a play on words where, you know, just to say, so she used the number 2, little XOXO, just for you. So again, actually taking that number and using it as part of a sentiment, I thought was a very clever approach to the numbers, Kath. But you can see in the background, there's the stencils, there's a little bit of Forgotten Garden that she added, because I want you to recognize the scale of these. They are big. They were designed to be big because I wanted, as a maker, that they could be big enough that they could actually get lost in the background. It could be a focal point, or you can accent those or decorate those with other images, be that die cuts or stamps or anything. And I think that these cards, these 2 cards that Kath did, I think are really, they're great. They're beautiful. Joy created this card. No, she loves the number 4, I do. But so, like, again, birthday. The birthday doesn't mean that they have to be turning 4. It could be their birthdays on the 4th. So you can use the number for an age or an actual date. But I really love how she took one of the happy birthday stamps. I think this is maybe from Crazy Talk. And just like what I was saying about Tammy, just taking a stamp and just stamping it. But here she went in and stamped, but then embossed it with glaze. So I thought that was really, really clever by just changing the color of glaze to create a colorful background that would also work as a resist. And then that allowed her to just kind of grunge it up with some browns. But isn't that great? Beautiful use. Distress embossing glaze, I'm telling you, and I know Natifa did a post about this not too long ago about like underrated products. And I would agree, this is one of those that people really underestimate the power of embossing glaze because they just think it's embossing powder. And using it with colors, it works as a resist, but it also can work as great texture, as we've seen throughout this slide. But I love that. I did that because it's 4, but then I'm going to go back to a card that Kat did in the series, but I wanted to go in sequence because, well, that's my brain, and my brain takes over and I have to just let it go. So Kath created this, a Sweet 16 birthday card, obviously part of the same kind of series, again, doing your backgrounds, doing your colors, but making that number significant to an age. And I thought that was really charming. So when you have an idea, as makers, don't always feel you have to reinvent the wheel. Don't always feel that you have to impress the world. Your creativity is your creativity. And if you have a palette or a layout or an aesthetic that you like, celebrate the heck out of that. Run with it. And just do it in every which way that you want, that your inspiration takes you. So for 16, we're going to go up in sequence because, again, that's my brain. Did I put them in numerical order? You bet I did, because I had to. I had no choice. My brain was like, you're going to put them in order, like it or not. Rochelle created this. I love the combination of using these stamps and inking them in that rainbow color, but also adding Sizzix die cut. So that's Colorize Celebrate. I love the little party hat. So again, big enough that you can use your dies to accent these numbers. They are a statement in and of itself. And then using Happy Birthday from Curiosity Shop. But isn't that a really clever way to accent those numbers? So think about that. I know many people like the different accessories of like hats, and you think like for Christmas 25, you can add a little scarf to maybe around the neck of the 5. That's going to be the playfulness of these numbers for not only right now, but just think of any seasons coming up. We got Valentine's Day, 4th of July with significant numbers, Halloween on the 31st, Christmas. I just think you're going to see probably these numbers used throughout the season. Case in point, Lucky Day, 17th. Look at that. I love this card. This is Tammy B. I have to look at the back. Cause see, I would not have guessed this was Tammy B, but I love it. But I should know because I know that she absolutely loves St. Patrick's Day. But take a look at how those clovers are. But I love that embossing. You know what? It's always interesting. I'm saying, you know what, to Mario, but Mario's over there. But I'll talk to myself. You know what? I'm really impressed by how many people in this particular assignment of Makes have used embossing. That's so cool, because that's another one of those things that we as makers, and I say we because I'm only speaking to myself, not accusing anyone, but I often just forget those additional details because I'm like, I don't want to bother getting out the powder and heating it. But it makes such a difference because really every card that I picked up, it's like I pick it up, but then I feel it and I'm like, yeah, wow. It just adds such a great depth to things. But I love how Tammy went in and used that clover from Curiosity Shop as the background. Also Lucky Day, and then just added that little bit of metallic. So, see, really, really good. Really good. Then we get on to 18th birthday. See, Nico was reading my mind. I couldn't have planned that any better. I love how Nico created this card. Look at those numbers first in the background. So just because you're going to highlight a number doesn't mean you can't use the rest of the set. You do the background, and then I really like how he went in and stamped these. See, that brushy bit? That's the stamp. That's the stamp. So he stamped these and then he went and cut it out. But there, again, Curiosity Shop, the hat and the mustache right on there. Great for a birthday card because you can make these any theme. I know people always talk about like fun and whimsical or masculine looking. So you can really dress up these numbers however you want. See, hopefully you're not underestimating the power of a good number stamp set. Zoe with a Y created these. Or this, I don't know why I keep saying these because I'm looking at multiples, but I love these little packages. This is what caught me because at first I'm like, what is that? She just took the stencil from the cutout shapes and she made these little packages, these little gifts. And I thought that was really clever because it did catch my eye. That's why I said these, because I didn't know what these were, but I wanted to remember to say like, that's a great idea just to take a stencil design and make an accent. And then again, more embossing, that 18, and that's a little ideology metallic sticker. For Make-A-Wish. So good with the numbers. We're counting up. We are. Kubert created this. 21st birthday. There's a little 21. I love the wood grain. So this is just using a 3D embossing folder to create that wood grain. That's again from Sizzix. Doing that background. Little stenciling. I love the debossed color in there. That scorched wood. Just makes it, you don't have to do much when it comes to having that perfect number stamp set because that really does, that tells a story. Keisha created this, so it doesn't always have to be for a birthday. It could be for anniversary. I love this 25 years happy. It could be for a birthday or anniversary. But what a great play on using the numbers, again, just using them in a background. And they can be significant numbers, but doing different colors. And then how Keisha went in and then added See, more embossing. The 25, as soon as I felt it, I'm like, I'm going to see it. And then how she just went in and just used an alphanumeric die set just to cut out whatever letters she wanted to do on that. But I also love the abbreviation of years. I think that's cool. See, birthday or anniversary. Doesn't matter. You got it. It can also be very specific. Zoe with a Y created this one. So the benefit of having a number set, 33rd birthday, there's crochet trims. Could be the person's favorite color. You can incorporate any other older stamp sets or dies for this. But I love how she just used that whole color palette. And again, more embossed. I'm going to notice it now every single time I pick something up, if it's embossed or not. It's crazy. Vicky created this. This is like, I always talk about like when a maker goes in and does masking. Masking, of course, stamping, putting that piece, stamping over it, because often you would think that most things could be dimensionalized. This is all one layer on this card. So a great use of masking to not only start with the stencil in the background of those labels, but then do that paint by number, but then mask it off because obviously you would have to, you start with this and then you do this and then these go over that. That's the whole masking. But isn't that great? I really, look at that little question mark. So that's a little cutout question mark. Really fun for a 50th birthday card because we often do some great things. Isn't that masking? See, that's another one. That's one of those techniques that I think the first time you see masking done, it is like a magic trick because you're like, how did you get that under that? But it's not cut out. Masking. That's why Gina K has masking magic, because it is just magical stuff. All right. Rochelle created this. I love the repetition of numbers as well. So what a cool way to use the numbers on a card. So for a 50th birthday, just using your different color inks and just keeping that vertical alignment there, and then the repetition of happy birthday, and then just pair it with the cardstock. See? Cool. Simple way to just incorporate those numbers. That is good. That is just a great way that you can say, I'm going to just take these numbers and just create magic. Keisha did this one as well, 50 in fab. So again, it could be anniversary, it could be a play, but I really like how for both of her cards, she used the numbers, she used some stencils, and then she just added alphabet, because those letters, by adding words, that could also just make it a little bit more, impactful, if you will. I'll put that over here with the other one. I'm running out of space on this. I only have a couple more, a few more. Well, that's all right. We'll be good. Jen created this one. Look at that colorful 60th. See, we're counting up. This one I'll probably have to scoot over because my brain won't let me leave it there. But look at how great that rainbow background is, that little bit of paste. I love that translucent paste in there. I love the playfulness of watercolor, but I also like the ability to stamp, because paint by number, if you're stamping it just with a dry ink, yes, you're going to get the scratchy. But if you don't like that, if you're like, I'm not really a fan of that, this is a great trick, because inking and doing watercolor, like when you spray, the watercolor stamping would often fill in those little skippity bits. You're still going to get something distressed, but it won't be scratchy like paint by number. So I love this, Jen. I love the blend and flow of color. Okay, don't mind me. It just has to. There we go. Okay, now we put this one 60, and we go with 70. Louisa created this one. I love it. I couldn't have planned this any better, that there were so many different numbers and dates. But I love how Louisa took and created this background. It's almost like this panel background. We've got the number strip from Curiosity Shop. We've got the clovers from Curiosity Shop, and even some accents over the top. And then just that 70 stitched, beautiful little metallic accent of the metallic embossing, little splatters, and then happy birthday. But a great, and that's just like more sophisticated, just a totally different way to incorporate numbers, right? Beautiful. Then I've got one more. It's just going to hover over the top that Sharon did, because this is another thing. If you're like, well, I don't want to plan, I just want to make cards, and I like to have birthday cards at the ready. Sharon has got you covered with this colorful beauty. Look at that. Just taking the stamps and just inking and stamping and inking and stamping and creating the most colorful collage of numbers in the background. And there you go. And it will fit for every birthday, every year, everything. So if you're really looking for just a way that you can do a lot of birthday card ideas, and you think, well, I don't want to always get specific and I won't use it, remember, the numbers themselves are a great creative touch. And it doesn't have to be colorful. You can take any of these aesthetics and achieve the same look just by stamping and layering. And then when you spray with water, it's just going to get the distressing just to kind of feather out just a little bit and soften. And that's what creates kind of a beautiful, beautiful background. So great card Sharon. Isn't that wonderful? Just like Cool Makes using Paint by Numbers. There you go. A great stamp set. A lot of inspiration, isn't it? You never would think like a number set could have so many different personalities. That's what I was thinking when I was setting it up. I'm like, it's like I really wouldn't have anticipated the numbers kind of having a personality, but I can see a personality with each maker's use of that number set.
I did love
This is
seeing
fun.
them go up in order. That was really fun.
Well, I had to. I had to.
I had no choice.
I had no choice. I tried. I'm like, just do it kind of more creatively. I'm like, nope, that's not happening. I have to do it this way. Okay, we got one more set to go through. We're going to wrap this up. Still a lot of inspiration, so we got a bit. But we're in our final set of Curiosity Shop. And you can imagine there's so many different images on here that the makers had a creative play day. It was a set that we have the most makes for. But not surprising because some focused on specific aspects of Curiosity Shop and others just incorporated a whole mix of this. And that's really why I named it Curiosity Shop, because it has a lot of great curious elements. So we'll start with this card that Rochelle did, and this of course is going to highlight what I mentioned at the beginning about how this stamp set could be used and why I did that piece of paper image, if you will, that outline of it, just so you knew the size, and plus you'd get an outline. But I love how Rochelle used the numbers, just stamped across craft cardstock, stamped the typewriter in craft, cut it out. That is fussy cut, even down to that little, wow. And then, oh, look at, hold on a minute. That is brilliant. Okay, so here, okay, my brain, can you guys smell it? It's short-circuiting right now in real time. This little heart, because I was like, I didn't put a heart in that stamp set. That's a clover leaf. Right there. That little heart is just one of those. Stamped and cut out and then inked in red. Now you can see why I was like, where was the heart? Because it really looks like the rest of the set. When did I do it? That's brilliant, Rochelle. Wow. So, stamped, cut, and then stick that little piece of paper in there. But now you know, if you need a little heart that goes with this whole set that has that same engraved look, Rochelle has got you covered by just cutting off one of those. Wow, there's a love you. I love that. Jeez. Kubert created this. What a fun thing. A lot of this whole first batch is all going to be typewriter, just so you can kind of see how the typewriter could be used and how it could be used in different styles and different aesthetics as well. And I think, you know, like there's a whole pile of cards when it comes to that. But when Kubert created this, I love how she just did a colorful background. She did some texture paste, some numbers, but there again, just adding that paper. And you don't have to always cut this and slide the paper in. Here you can see Kubert just put it over the top of it. So, you know, it was still designed to be in scale that you can glue it right over the top. That's why I wanted to have that stamped outline. So you can do that either way as a maker. Don't always feel you have to get out your craft knife to do it. You don't. You can do whatever is going to work best. Joy created this card. I love just that little wobbler. See? I used to say thinger, but now I know it's a wobbler. Isn't? I think it is, right? It's a wobbler? Okay, good. I'm like, I don't want to rename it. But very cute. Look at that little... See, I love that. Here, it's just adding that little layer. You see the dimension of that? It's just fun. Really great. But fussy cut, my word. Look at down to the detail. My gosh. But I love how that just kind of is raised up over the card. And really, those wobblers are just fun, aren't they? They're great fun for cards. Speaking of fun, I love the fun colors that Jen created because many, as you can imagine, stamped the typewriter in black. That's just how you see it. But Jen stamped it in color. And you do see a lot of cool vintage typewriters that have great colors. I think that to me is really a clever thing where a maker's just like, but this is how I see things. Jen sees things in vivid colors all the time, and I love how she celebrates it. But you can see how these typewriters just stamped in color are perfect. I love just that little bit of glossy accents that can go right over, or some type of dimensional glaze, go over the little keys to give it a little shine. Then we've got those stamp papers. Now the paper doesn't always have to be going horizontal. I love how Jen just used it and flipped it so it's a little smaller where she's got just those shorter sentiments that pop up. So when you're using this stamp, yes, it'll fit this way going through it. It goes all the way across, but you can certainly use it this way as Jen did just to have a shorter piece of paper. And then you have, of course, some stenciling in the background and some stamps. Really cool. Louisa created this one. I love just the tearing, the mixed media of it, and also how she dressed up the typewriter, just using the typewriter as a background, but then just doing these accents where she's got the clover, love the red clover, but then she did the hat and mustache in red, and then the love you coming out. But just that layered card, that grungy torn strip, and then just the pointy finger, because the pointy finger is just going to bring attention to whatever it is that you want to bring attention to. A great use of that set in the aesthetic style of the maker. Cassie created this card. You're going to see, again, certain elements also paired together by different makers. I love the Stay Curious with the light bulb in the background. I love how she used the pointy finger just to kind of point at that light bulb, because it's all about ideas, but also just using some of the other elements. There's washi tape back here, some inking, some stamping. This is one of those sets, and that's why I named it Curiosity Shop, that allows your curiosity just to have a good playtime. Zoe with a Y created this. Again, typewriter and light bulbs, but different. Instead of the light bulb coming up, she's got these light bulbs hanging down. I love how she just went in and kind of added those lines. Also glossy accents just to give it that glassy look, and then thinking of you, but then you can see those numbers used in the background. They make a great background set. But isn't that fun where the light bulbs are just kind of hanging down? So you'll see them used so many different ways. Gosh, this is a fun set. It's one of my favorites, and I got to say the makers just rocked it. Zoe Hillman also used a light bulb, but just it's a totally different. That's why I wanted to put all these together, because it's the same pairing but completely different result. And I love how Zoe did the typewriter. Again, fussy cutting. Wow. Added that. There's that paper. Ooh, Zoe went in and she took yeah, see? Oh, see, there's so many different ways to approach it now that I look. Like, there's that little cut. Like, look at that little detail cut going around the mechanics. And then there's the straight cut on the edge right above it. There's no right or wrong way to layer this. But I also love the pairing of different stamps. And I mentioned this, I think, in Zoe's last make, about going into those other sets and find things that work with how you try to incorporate the newness. I can't stress that enough. Use what you have with new things at what you get, because I think it's going to take whatever you have to such a different level, both old and new. It just gives you so many different ways that you can utilize stuff. All right. This set, no surprise. The surprise is going to be what's inside. But Natifa created this. I love that she also did a typewriter in a different color, but really kind of monochromatic with all those different colors on craft. The little deliver to, that's the stencil. See, this is why that stamp needed to be in a strip. Because if they were all individual, I think it would only be used individually. And it's such a great background stamp. It really is. It doesn't mean you can't use it individually. Let's see what we have inside. Very cool birthday card. Fun use of the hat and the mustache just kind of sitting over that paper. So see, the typewriter on the outside, then you can still use that. I think that's a great idea, just to use that little sheet of paper just to stamp little sentiments. So there again, go into your stash and see how many different sentiments do you have that fit that little frame. Not many sets, do you want to just put a rectangular piece of nothing? But in this set, it worked because of the typewriter, but I love its use without. And there's the mustache, and you see the numbers. And because the numbers are long, you can just do different sections of it and then pair it on some ideology paper. I love that. What a great fun. We're going to put that off to the side in this color. Oh, so fun. So fun. All right. Speaking of fun, Anita had fun. Take a look at this. This is fun. I love this modern retro scene of this whole card. And it's also clever because there's a little gift card pocket, little Starbucks card. But you know how Anita went in, did stamping, again, little glossy accents on the keys, just a note, but then also kind of did a play where you can use rub-ons, just a note, your number one. So she made this all up because we have just a note, but then going in and using other stamps or rub-ons or whatever you have. I also love how she used these numbers but changed the color, very Starbucks green. But this, look at these little clever pointy fingers that she has using those little sticks. I think these are the sticks that like go in the cup, those little stir stick things that like plug the cup. Isn't that great? And then she just did those little pointy fingers that, oh, they come out. Oh, look at that. See? We could have a lot of fun just talking. Like, look, I could have used this the entire live because I'm a 5-year-old. And I could say, look at that little heart. Isn't that cool right there? You know it. See? Thanks. It's like toys as well. Brilliant. See, I think I just need to make a whole bowl of these. Just put these like in a bottle. Don't you love that? They're hilarious. They're so good. I love how they just go right into that hat. See, interactive. Told you. That's just fun. Very, very cool and very clever card, Anita. I love all the details. But what a fun approach to the whole thing. I know everyone's like, I do need a pointer. You know it. It's like, I just need to, yeah. It's like, okay, I'm just going to start playing around with that. All right. We're going to keep going on this because there's still more. So then there was a lot of theme with luck, and no surprise because obviously we included not only the clover but the little sentiment lucky day. So Sharon created this card. I love the background of this, just the stamping, again embossing glaze in the back, just to have those clovers just have a little bit of, I love that 4-leaf clover, just having a little bit of shine. And then lucky day coming out of the typewriter, crochet trims for the wind, just fill in on the bottom. Cool. Susie created this one. Look at all those fun, colorful clovers just exploding out of this card. So the background, she's got the black texture paste. Black texture paste is just so nice because it's matte. It just has like this, almost like a velvety look to it. You don't even have to ink it or do anything. It just has that great finish. But I love how she stamped all of these, fussy cut all of these, and just clustered them, just kind of spilling out of that typewriter with Lucky Day. Isn't that a great card? Because it doesn't have to be St. Patrick's Day. It could just really be anyone that you want to wish someone luck, or maybe they had good luck at a job or an opportunity, and it's like, wow, today's your lucky day. Or maybe because you're saying that you're coming to visit them. It's your lucky day, coming to see you. So really fun. Isn't that great? There we go. We'll get those in there. Stacy created this tag. Again, lucky day, but I wanted to put these together just to see how you can take a theme and just run with it in a completely different direction. This is using an etc. tag. So if you wanted to create something that's a bit more artful, that can kind of hang up somewhere. And I love how she put that little button inside the clover, the use of the numbers and the text in the background, that little stencil. And I also love, I know that Stacy works on like vintage onion paper. See how it's really translucent. But think about that. It doesn't always have to be white cardstock. You can stamp this on a much thinner paper if grunge and vintage is your style. And again, fussy cut for the win. Wow. All right. Zoe with a Y created this. Love the card. Love the stamping of the numbers of the light bulbs. Love the use of, again, glossy accents or also embossing. I mean, you could use clear embossing on a lot of these pieces as well. And then that lucky day coming out of the typewriter. See, just fun. I'm going to run out of room on this one. That's okay. I can consolidate. I really can. I got this. I got this. It's just stuff. It's just ideas and stuff everywhere. Barbara created this one. I love the colors. I love the little purple in the background. I love how she just took those little sheets, kind of crinkled up, you know, kind of like when you see people trying to write a book or do whatever, and that they just rip it out of the typewriter and just crinkle it up, or maybe you don't even remember people ripping things out of a typewriter. But I love this design. It is a great statement piece. I agree. The typewriter is everything because it can tell such a different story depending on how you interpret the design or the image. You know, whether you want to dress it up or add a little heart to it. It's just really cool. But I also really liked how the makers approached just that whole lucky thing, because I know that was such a strong vibe. And then Joy was like, look, I love the typewriter, guys. I do. But let's just talk about how cool that clover is. And I'm going to do a little shakety shake. And I love how she used that little boutique frame from the new Vault boutique, that small little frame, and just created a little shakety shake with that clover, and then just did Lucky Day with the stencil. So that's also a really clever thing. And that's what we're going to get into in the next series of how makers, you know, really took to a specific image or design and just had to play. I think that's really, really clever. I think it's great. I think it's someone asked, are the clover stamps similar in size to the impress set? You know what? I don't know that. I don't know. It was certainly the same art. I can tell you that. The art that was used to design that impresslet back then is the same art in this image. I just don't know if I kept the scale the same. That's going to be fun to try. Yeah, that's a good idea just to see. Wouldn't that be cool if it was? That would definitely be a happy accident right there. So that's the first part of Curiosity Shop. Yeah, that's from Lucky Love, that impressive. You know I'll be trying that right after live. I'll be like, let's see. It looks really similar, to be honest, scale-wise, but somebody might even try it during live. There's many makers that like make during live. Oh yeah, they're making away. Okay. So as we continue, we're going to keep going with more Curiosity Shop. Nico created this. I love the idea of this. And I love how he just put it like on a card, but honestly, these could be 3 different ones. But look at how he used the crochet trims, again, as that background. But I think just the way he used it and did like that wet watercolory background, I don't really see it so much as that crochet trim as I do just a great textural background. So I do love that about how he used that set to accent these elements. But then he's got the hat, and each one is stamped and cut. And then he's got thoughts and theories for the hat, thinking of you with the clover, happy birthday with the little light bulb, because there are 2 different sized light bulbs in this set. But that's fun. That's a great way to incorporate the images and utilize them on a card, or again, a series of cards. Tammy B created this card. I love that. This could be for a birthday. This could be Father's Day. This could be really anything. But again, isolating an element. Curiosity Shop has a ton of great stuff, but it doesn't mean everything has to be a creative casserole. It doesn't. You don't have to make a creative casserole out of everything. You can just say, I like that. I'm just going to highlight that. And I love how she used the hats. She used a little paper and then happy birthday. And look at that deco stencil. You're right, Paula. It's good. It goes with a lot of things. Because I was like, what does it go with? She's like, everything. She's right. It's cool. It's a really great use for that. This is the one that I said, like, come on. Alberto, just like, come on. I get it's a light bulb, and I've seen a lot of light bulbs, but my brain goes to what I've seen so far. Ideas, curiosity, Edison bulbs, all of that. Did I ever think that they would be these colorful party lights or potentially cool vintage Christmas lights? No. And I love that. I love that he did his colorful style even with these vintage designs. That's just cool. Taking those and stamping them and coloring and doing highlights and then just drawing in the string, that's a brilliant use for that, because this is great for a party invitation. But I think even for the holidays, this little light bulb, doing a whole string of vintage Christmas lights, like, I'm there. I'm so set that I think that's very cool. It's a clever way that I had never even imagined it to be. And quite honestly, the only maker that I saw that really used the stamp this way. And that's what I say. It's such a testament to how makers do them. It might be a challenge. It might be a challenge of, like, gosh, how am I going to use this vintage stuff in my style? But the results are like, yeah, that's when you know. When you know, when you see it. Vicky created this. I love how it didn't even have to be the entire typewriter, because Vicky is all about, the pointy finger. So she really made it more focused on this, but still incorporated the top half of the typewriter. It's on that giant label stamp. That's one of the stamps, similar to the one Zoe used, but just a bigger size. But I love how Vicky did this. Again, layered it on black. There's a bunch of stamping back here, which even looks like crochet trims. You can barely see it, but see that shine? That's that stamp back there. But it looks like scribbles on this one, which I love. There you go. I'm trying to get the light to hit it. Then she used some Ideology hardware, but again, just make it very unique to the person that you're sending it to. And I also think that this would be a great plate for the front of a journal. Thoughts and theories? What a great cover plate for an art journal or a junk book. Just, that's cool. Very, very cool. All right. This, such a fun card that Juliana created. I love how Juliana took the wheel. Look at all those colors. Look at all those colors. Just beautiful embossed of that wheel for the shine. But that's done over this panel of just images stamped in black over white. So I thought it was really a clever way to interpret these images just by stamping them in black and white. But then almost like that color wheel is what's giving the image the color wherever it hit. And that's the benefit of just, translucent powder. I'm assuming this is glaze. I mean, if it is glaze, like, bravo to you, because that's like individual glaze colors. Or is it ink blended and then clear embossing powder? I don't know. I really don't. Something tells me it's glaze just from how it's got this little sprinkle gradation. you know, where she just took different colors of glaze and did that.
All embossing glaze.
Man, see, that's brilliant, Juliana. Like that's kind of what I thought, but that was some serious challenge. That's like serious masking and control, but the results are perfection. Isn't that great? That's a great idea for using the images as black and white, and then over the top of that in the translucent glaze, because distress embossing glaze, again, the fact that it has that ability to see through color is just cool. All right.
She said it took me forever.
I bet. Because that's why, like, at first I'm like, if you do it, it's going to take a while, but man, the result was totally worth it. So Kathy created this series. I love this playful series using not only Curiosity Shop, but of course mixed with paint by number, but I really loved how much of the Curiosity Shop she used around the numbers, and they could be used for different things. So a very playful use of these images. They don't always have to be, you know, they could certainly be a focal point, but they could be all different directions. So I love the collage of like the hat on, and they could be overstamped. You don't always have to mask either, just depends on your color choices. But how she did the light bulbs and the mustache and just the numbers that go across, but then also highlighted a larger number with paint by number. And I love how the sign, that little piece of paper from the typewriter, is just sitting on the finger. But this is all stamped, so nothing is cut out. It's just using stamps and ink colors, just choosing your ink colors wisely and being able to layer. But taking that idea, I love how she took the idea, the concept, but you don't have to match the exact layout. Be just as playful. So here she used the same ingredients, but a different result. So now you've got the light bulb with the hat and the mustache and the fingers. You've got now Stay Curious with the numbers coming in. And then this one, Lucky Day. So you still have the typewriter and the paper, but now you use these elements, but kind of same color palette. I always love when makers just have an idea and they're not afraid to just continue with it. That to me is so inspiring, that they're like, yeah, I like this. Okay, I'm gonna do this one. Oh, now I'm gonna get these images. Oh, what sentiment should I put with this one? They don't all have to be the same. Very clever, very cool. Juliana created this one as well. Like, see, same maker, so different in style, but I love the playfulness where, you know, this was one where it's like, I've got this idea, I'm going to do black and white in the color wheel. This one is, hey, I'm going to use those and I'm going to use some of my favorite vintage colors. But all of these images, this color that you see, it's not smudged in there from an ink pad. It's just where she went in and stamped, and then that ink was reacted just to create a little effect. So that amber color that you're seeing in there, that's the light bulb. This is the pointy finger over here. There's a clover. The blue is just part of the top hat. So those add those pops of color with the stamped image. And then you've got those numbers. Then she has the little sentiments, Lucky Day, Stay Curious, Thoughts and Theories, and then highlighting that kind of elements used from the card. You're like, okay, there's a light bulb, I'll stamp, and then that's all just cut out, layered over that stencil. See, there's that stencil again, but a smaller one. That's the floral one. Cool, just a great card. Okay. Then we have these, just a couple more. We're in the home stretch here, you guys. Kath created these. I love the idea of just taking journals, right? You can find often blank journals. So if you're not a card maker, like I said, these could be used for junk journals or even gifts where you take this. And I love how she just created these covers on these little journal books, just using stamps and stencils, but different ideas. So here's what I was saying, like Thoughts and Theories, where it can just be like a notebook. Maybe you make it for yourself, or just a note. But not only did I love the idea about it, but I also love how she really shifted the color palette, you know, where you can do like blues and browns with the mustache and the hat, but you can also do this in pinks and browns and using the clover. Just have two totally different styles with a very similar idea. Isn't that great? Brilliant, 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 brilliant. And then we've got this final make. I saved this one. Emma, I loved everything about this. I loved everything about all the makes, but really how the makers interpret a stamp set. And to me, this was very carnival, kind of like how Anita had just the little pointers. I love how Emma went in and created this, where she took those numbers, stamped them, colored the edges. So stamping in black is still going to give you this open space to add color. Remember that. The cool thing about the way this image is designed, all that white space is colorable. So I love how she went in and did each one as its own panel, then stitched them together Look at that. These are like patchwork quilted back together to make this tiled piece. Then we've got the pointy finger, almost kind of doing a countdown. Then this really reminds me of a carnival wheel. I don't know, I'm going to try to hold it in the light. Can you see how she did the numbers on the paper and then made the rosette with it? Do you see that? So those are all the numbers where she stamped on the paper first, then when you die cut it, make the rosette. It's almost like a carnival wheel. And I love seeing that wheel out of the vault rosette. And then she did the hat and the mustache as the center. So again, it just kind of is like the, I love everything about this. And then of course, Lucky Day, she finished it off with a 7, then added a little ideology metal star, but the pointy fingers are also cut out and layered. But just the work of putting this together. I mean, some people just have a story and they want to tell it. I think that's really clever. All of these ideas, I mean, when you take a look, I'm going to try to move all this stuff so I can get that one final layout in there. I just think that like when it comes to how makers interpret images or imagery, just in general, it's very rewarding as a designer to see when it's in my head and I'm like, oh, that's going to be cool. Oh, I see it used this way. But then in a live, when all these makes show up and it's like this explosion of inspiration, it's just so rewarding. So again, a shout out to all the makers for creating such brilliance, and to the team at Stampers Anonymous for such great products.